This video is about the most well-known adult star from the 1970s and 1980s. People in this time period are called adult Americans. It wasn't always about shock value in adult movies back then. They often had an amazingly high level of artistic expression and even became popular with most people. Boundaries were being pushed at the time, and making brave decisions could lead to fame out of the blue. Marilyn Chambers' story is one of the most memorable from that time. At first, she was the white soap girl with the fresh face who stood for pure American innocence. However, what came next shocked everyone. This video will show you all the amazing changes she went through, from being a clean-cut advertising star to a controversial adult movie star. More than just gossip is going on in her life. The story is about success, defiance, and how one woman changed what it meant to be a star. Marilyn Chambers, whose real name was Marilyn Ann Briggs and she was born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1952, seemed to be going to have a very unusual life. Westport, Connecticut was a quiet neighborhood haven where she grew up. Because I was the third child in a quiet, determined, and artsy family. The family was stable thanks to her kind nurse mother, and her father, who worked in the fast-paced world of advertising, gave their lives a little extra drive. The genes were unique. In the end, her brother would play piano for the rest. This rock band was the first to play before the Beatles on their last US tour. Marilyn was early on interested in the glamour of show business. Not only was acting a dream, it was a job. She was already trying to become famous by the time she was 16. To get to New York City to try out for roles, she forged her mother's name and skipped school. She walked like a woman twice her age, but she was also beautiful, like someone who knew her star would shine. Marilyn started getting small modeling jobs when she was still in high school. She did these to get used to being in front of a camera and build her confidence. Her big break came in 1970 when she had a small part in the love comedy The Owl and the Pussycat, in which Barbra Streisand played a part-time prostitute, which was a perfect fit for her. Marilyn was on screen for a short time, but it was a moment that showed what a dangerous and interesting job she would have in the future. Early in her work as a model, Marilyn Chambers was hired to play the clean-cut all-American Ivory Snow girl. This turned out to be both her best-paying and funniest job. Ivory Snow soap flake boxes had a picture of her with calm eyes and a baby in her arms, making her look like a loving mother. It was easy to understand the message. It was safe to use this soap on the most delicate items like diapers and baby clothes because it was so clean and mild. People still talk about the Procter & Gamble ad. Marilyn's face was truly pure, but fate, with its cruel sense of humor, had other plans for that beautiful face. Marilyn went on to star in adult films, where her time as the Ivory Snow model was used as both a marketing trick and a sneaky inside joke. This is a plot twist that will live on in pop culture lore. Almost all of her adult movies had a sexy nod to her soapbox days, sometimes in the background and sometimes in the spotlight. People who saw it got the irony. A lot of people in the X-rated world knew what 99 and 44 100% pure looked like. It was interesting how innocence and rebellion were put next to each other. Marilyn knew what she was doing and didn't feel bad about playing both parts perfectly. Marilyn Chambers was stuck in that familiar Hollywood limbo after her short role in The Owl and the Pussycat. She was full of desire but short on opportunities. There were no roles to play, and the doors wouldn't open. So she did something brave. In 1970, she went west to San Francisco, a city full of counterculture energy and artistic opportunities. So she could make money, she worked as a topless model. But she never lost sight of her goal to become a real actress. Then in 1972, a small ad in the newspaper changed everything. Marilyn was reading the San Francisco Chronicle when she came across an ad for a part in what was called a big motion picture. She was interested, so she went to the test and found out the truth. Behind the Green Door was the name of the adult movie in question, and it was being made by the famous Mitchell brothers, Artie and Jim. The brothers, who are known for breaking new ground in the adult film business, saw right away that Marilyn looked a lot like Sybil Shepherd and offered her the lead role right away. Marilyn was unsure at first. She had good reason to be worried. If you play a part in pornography, you might lose your chance to work in popular movies. But she was interested in the plot. It wasn't foolish smut, there was a story, a mood, and an artistic goal. She agreed then. On one condition: she would get a good wage and 10% of the movie's gross earnings. Also, all the actors would have to get tested for genital diseases. The Mitchell brothers were surprised by how strong-willed she was, but they agreed to her terms because they liked how she looked and couldn't deny her charm. They knew she was the new face they needed because she was the perfect mix of innocent and beautiful. Marilyn played a rich socialite from San Francisco and Behind the Green Door. She was kidnapped and taken to a private sex club in North Beach where she was hypnotically drawn into a series of sexual experiences. It broke rules by having gay scenes and what is thought to be the first sex scene between two different racial groups in a full-length adult movie. Marilyn didn't say a single line of speech, which was strange. She relied only on her body language and facial emotions, which she later called a strength because she thought it showed off her acting skills in a real and honest way. Marilyn didn't casually drop the bombshell on the Mitchell brothers until after shooting Rap. She was the face of Ivory Snow and the Ivory Snow Girl. The brothers were shocked, but they saw that what she said was gold. As a cheeky marketing move, they changed her name to the 99.44% Impure Girl, which was a risque take on Ivory Snow's famous purity motto. It was an embarrassingly smart idea. The response happened right away and was very strong. Procter & Gamble took her picture off of shelves across the country because they were so shocked that their purity poster child had become the face of violent movies. But the debate made things worse. Behind the Green Door was a huge hit at the box office thanks to Marilyn's well-known face. It came out the same year as Deep Throat, which featured the famous Linda Lovelace. Together they helped start what became known as the porno chic era, or the golden age of adult films. The avant-garde Blue movie by Andy Warhol in 1969 was the start of what has become a huge culture phenomenon. Sexually explicit movies were shown in regular movie houses for the first time. They were getting good reviews from well-known reviewers. A lot of people talked about them at dinner. The mood had changed, and all of a sudden Marilyn Chambers was at the center of it all. You couldn't just watch these movies for the shock value, they had stories, artistic goals and performances that amazingly included real acting. Marilyn was at the center of this movement. She used to be a sign of purity, but now she stands for fearless change. Marilyn Chambers kept working with the Mitchell brothers after Behind the Green Door's huge success. She starred in The Resurrection of Eve, which wasn't as well known as Behind the Green Door. The movie made Marilyn even more of a well-known figure as the all-American girl next door with a forbidden edge. Some people are very over the top, but her soft features and girl next door smile made her stand out. She turned into more than a star. She became a symbol because she was both innocent and seductive, which attracted people. The Mitchell brothers became her agents when they saw how marketable she was. Marilyn had bigger plans though. She was well known for her work in porn, but she wanted to be taken seriously outside of adult shows. She left the Mitchells because she didn't like how her sexy fame was limiting her. Instead, she joined forces with Chuck Traynor, a man with a shady past who is known for managing and marrying Linda Lovelace, the sad star of Deep Throat. In the end, Traynor married her and became her boss. Marilyn set her sights on becoming a well-known actress. She thought that her fame from Behind the Green Door could let her into Hollywood. But she quickly learned that fame and porn were like two sides of the same coin. Even though her movie made a lot of money and got a lot of press, people who work in Hollywood thought it was just a dirty movie. The doors wouldn't open, they slammed shut. She said she had been turned down because of her adult film fame, which had ruined her plans before they could fully take off. There were signs of hope. In the 1970s, she was said to have been in talks for a number of big roles, but each time the deals fell through. A talk with Jack Nicholson and Art Garfunkel about a possible part in the Western comedy Going South, which came out in 1978, didn't go as planned. It wasn't a real audition, instead they asked her about her sex scenes and gave her drugs. She stormed out angry and disappointed. Another chance, and maybe the funniest of them all, came with Hardcore, a movie starring George C. Scott about a dad looking for his daughter in the porn business. Marilyn was almost cast as the lead in a pornographic movie. She could have made the part seem very real. In a strange turn of events though, the casting director turned her down because she looked too good to be a porn actor. She kept going anyway. Marilyn finally became well known when she got the lead part in David Cronenberg's Canadian horror movie Rabid in 1976. She got praise for her creepy, understated performance as a woman who gets a thirst for blood after experimental surgery. Even though it didn't make her famous, it showed that she could play in more than just adult movies. On stage, Marilyn also got a second wind. She played the lead role in several plays, including Las Vegas's The Mind with the Dirty Man. That was a surprise hit and ran for an amazing 52 weeks. At the time, it was the longest-running show in Las Vegas. She even got a key to the city from the mayor. Later, she showed off her skills in an off-Broadway musical review and led a risky one-woman show in Las Vegas called Sex Surrogate, which caused a stir because it was completely naked. Later, the show was turned into Love Ya, Florence Nightingale, a 26-part cable TV series. Aired on niche networks like Playboy TV. She wanted to do more than just play. Marilyn tried her hand at the music business and had some success. In 1976 she put out a disco song called Benny Hanna which got to the top of the charts. As a mimic she changed styles and led a country western band called Haywire which played live in Las Vegas. It was an unexpected but perfect move for a woman who wouldn't let herself be pigeonholed. Marilyn used a pen in addition to the stage and screen. She wrote her book My Story in 1975. It was an honest look into her life, her wants and the choices she made. After 2 years she wrote Xaviera Meets Marilyn Chambers with Xaviera Hollander, who is famous for being a happy hooker. Marilyn also wrote sex columns and advice columns that were both funny and useful over the course of her work, taking the mystery out of pleasure and encouraging honest talks about sexuality. She wrote 2 more books in 1981. Sensual Secrets was full of her sex tips and the illustrated Kama Sutra was an educational and fun look into erotica. Marilyn Chambers was determined to leave the adult film role and pursue a career in mainstream entertainment, but she couldn't help but be pulled back to the world that made her famous. She came back to the adult business with the hit movie Insatiable in 1980, which caused a lot of controversy. The title was strong and the show was even stronger. That usual mix of innocence and intensity came through in the movie and people loved it. Not only did Insatiable work, it ruled. From 1980 to 1982 it was the best-selling adult video in the US, proving once again that Marilyn is one of the most bankable names in the genre. Because it did so well, there was a follow-up and Marilyn became the face of adult movies again, this time during the home video boom. Marilyn wasn't happy to just act though. She wanted power over her ideas. She turned her personal idea into a direct-to-video series called Marilyn Chambers' Private Fantasies in the early 1980s. It was more than just another porn show, it was a look into her mind. The plots and conversations were all written by her. She made up sex scenes based on her own dreams and performed with some of the biggest names in adult film. In a business mostly made up of men, it was unusual for a woman to not only star in but also shape the story. It was a creative power move in a male-dominated space. But the golden age of porn was coming to an end and a new, scarier threat stood over the business. AIDS. In the mid-1980s, when fear spread through the adult world, Marilyn chose to take a step back. She quit the business again because of health worries, an industry that was changing, and her desire to keep exploring other ways to express herself. She stayed out of the adult press for years. But in 1999, almost 20 years after Insatiable, she came back for one last show called Still Insatiable. Marilyn Chambers stopped making adult movies and went back to San Francisco in 1985 to do naked shows at the Mitchell Brothers O'Farrell Theater. Undercover police said she let people in the crowd touch her during one show, which led to charges of lewd behavior and soliciting prostitution. The charges were dropped in the end. Soon after, she was arrested again at a Cleveland strip club for reportedly having sexual contact with a customer while being naked except for her shoes. Marilyn Chambers stayed out of the press in her later years, but people still knew her at conventions and autograph shows, where fans talked about how she was a star of the adult film golden age. In 2004, she ran for vice president on the Personal Choice Party ticket, which was a big surprise for her. Personal freedom was the main goal of this libertarian-leaning party. In 2008, she ran again as a write-in candidate with Charles J. She had long defended her lifestyle and supported sex positivity, but over time her views changed. In an interview in 2004, she showed a more thoughtful side by calling the adult film business heartbreaking. She was found dead in her home near Santa Clarita, California on April 12, 2009 by her 17-year-old daughter. Painkillers and antidepressants were found in the body, but not in amounts that would have killed the person. An aneurysm linked to heart disease caused a brain bleed that killed her. She died at age 56, leaving behind a life of defiance, fame, and complexity.